Holy shit, guys. Welcome to episode 9 of Into the Van. I can't believe we're almost in double figures. And it's all thanks to, people listening to it, supporting it, sharing it. And, this has been a real, point of focus and something for me to channel my creativity into during, a pandemic where there's no live shows. I haven't really been inspired to write. I've got the Next Life album to plan and prep for, and all that's happening. So to have this has been something that's been really fun and engaging. And, to talk about the things I love, like music, marketing, promotion, comic books, film. This has been one of the best things for me. It's been such a fun trip, and today is no different. We've got Anthony Simpkins from GemsOnVHS. GemsOnVHS is this amazing YouTube channel that platforms so many incredible modern artists that if you haven't listened to them and you haven't checked out their work, go do it right now, because there's so many incredible artists like Pat Reedy, Sierra Ferrell, Benjamin Todd, and there's so many amazing videos on there that you can't get through them in one sitting. You're gonna have so many hours of content that you're gonna enjoy and love, and I just can't recommend their channel enough. So when Into the Van had to go digital and I wasn't going to be able to meet them face to face, I thought, who can I talk to that I've always wanted to talk to? I may not get a chance in the immediate future. They may not be coming to the UK, or I don't know their schedule, so they might come and I might miss them. Who can I have a Zoom or a Skype meeting with? And Anthony from Gems was the top of the list. For the type of music I play and listen to, GemsOnVHS and another one called Western as Fuck, Western AF, have been such portals into modern artists, especially they're both state-based, so American artists. We'd love something like that over in the UK, but till then, that's why I wanted to pick Anthony's brain on how he got started. GemsOnVHS is fucking brilliant. Anthony's mind and musical insights and his perspective is completely unique and invaluable, and I'm so happy I got to pick his brain throughout this. And we got a surprise song by Josh Okeefe. When I called Anthony in his apartment in Nashville, Josh was there dropping off an album and t-shirt that Anthony had backed on a Kickstarter. So we were lucky enough to get a song as well by Josh Okeefe, who played a Bernie Sanders town hall meeting, and he plays the song he played there, and it's a really interesting, beautiful guitar-driven harmonica melody song that's just, absolutely gorgeous. So I'm absolutely thrilled with this episode, and I think you guys are going to love it. To get everything out the way, I'm recording this on July 11th. Yesterday, my single Rock Ferry came out, and I've been blown away by it. I'm going to put the whole song here, so you can give it a listen to. If you've not checked it out already, we released a video, so you can listen to Rock Ferry now.
I'm not ashamed of where I'm from, but I ain't exactly proud that your mother on the corner, I think we used to hang around. But as I've gotten older, I can't remember now. Most I forgot on purpose, rest I forgot with time. Goddamn class of '07, wasted youth, branded lives. I'll make it out if it kills me. I'll see the other side. I drive through this memory of what a town's supposed to be. Boarded houses, broken windows, reflecting parts of me. This is where I was born, but it's not where I'll die. That's the funny thing about life, that it always goes on. Nobody gives a damn where you're going, only where you come from. We're all haunted by our past, those ghosts that won't be must be, dragging us to dilapidated tombs, disguised as rock fairy. This is where I was born, but it's not where I'll die.
And that's out everywhere on Spotify, Amazon, iTunes, YouTube. It's everywhere. And it's the first and only single off The Next Life, which is coming out August 7th. So, if you haven't pre-ordered it, you want to check it out, I implore you to please go listen to this. I'm so proud of this record, and the radio plays and the reviews are coming in, and it's all actually happening now. It's scary shit, but I'm so happy. But today's focus is Anthony of GemsOnVHS, and a surprise performance by Josh Okeefe. I fucking loved this conversation, and I think you guys will too. So without further ado, Anthony Simpkins, Mike West, and Josh Okeefe. Into the van we go. Welcome to Into the Van with me, Mike West. Go!
What do you think about that, Josh? Would you play a song later? Why not? He says, why not? That's cool. Okay, yeah, we'll have a special performance.
Oh, brilliant. Well, like I was saying before, the whole point of this podcast, Into the Van, was it was recorded out of my van. I'm a touring musician, and I'm lucky enough to meet musicians and things, so that was the podcast point. But as COVID's kind of put a stop to all that, I wanted to extend my reach to people that I wouldn't get a chance to meet face to face yet and things, and you were top of that list because I'm a huge fan of GemsOnVHS, and I wanted to sit down and talk to you about that and how you got started and that, your influences and all, part and parcel of it.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks for reaching out and having me. And I wouldn't be so sure you won't meet me face to face because, like I said, I'm in the UK a lot. Yeah. I know I love it over there. And, well, we'll see if I'll be over there anymore now that the United States is banned from traveling to the EU. But I know you guys just had Brexit, so you're not part of the EU anymore. So maybe I can still make it in.
Yeah, there's going to be a loophole, I think, between the two leaders. There's going to be some sort of deal to keep people traveling over, because I've never actually been to the States, much to my shame, and it's always on my bucket list and it's always something to do.
Yeah, well, come on over, and anytime you're here, I'm happy to host you, and you can see Appalachia from the comfort of my Tennessee home. You're always welcome.
No, well, thank you so much, man. To get into it, before obviously GemsOnVHS, what were you listening to? What was your first real musical influences or musical exposure?
My first influences, probably like a lot of people in my generation, was I love Eminem. I loved Smash Mouth, that song "Who Let the Dogs Out" by the Baja Men.
Yeah.
And a bunch of other stuff that's kind of in that sphere. I don't think when you're growing up, your influences are just what the culture presents you with. You don't, unless you're blessed to have parents and grow up in a community where, folk music or any kind of traditional music is really appreciated. then you're not going to have that kind of exposure. I think my parents were always into pop music. Like my mom loved Duran Duran, and when she was growing up, and the first CDs that we had in the house were anything from hair metal to Prince,
Mm,
stuff from the 80s. That was their influences that kind of imparted on me. And so I've always had a really broad appreciation of different kinds of music. I'm not an elitist
mm,
by any means. I just think music is beautiful in general. It's something powerful and something that can really, help certain types of people through situations that they aren't reached by other means.
mm. Yeah, cool, man. Like that's I think the same as me. Like my mum was massively into like Motown and things like that. But as a kid, I think the first like 2 or 3 albums I ever bought were like Linkin Park's Meteora, Eminem's The Eminem Show were like my top 2 albums when I was a kid. They were like the first ones I picked up, and I think they were either they got to me at the earlier than they should have, but they were what I worshipped back in the day.
Well, if we're talking about the first CDs we ever bought, then for me, that would be around, I don't know, I must have been 12. And I think the first CDs were probably uh, Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon,
Mm,
and the Rolling Stones Flashpoint record, which I've heard later is a bad one of their records, but I loved it, and now I have memories of it that
yeah.
I'll never be able to get rid of. And then Incubus, their really famous one that had that big song on it, I can't remember. And Radiohead, OK Computer was another one that I got.
Mm,
I think when I finally became conscious of music, I was really influenced by some of my older friends, and they gave me kind of the rundown on what kind of music I needed to educate myself with. The beginning for a lot of people was, classic rock was
yeah.
cool. Led Zeppelin, Jimmy Page, and all that. Those characters were kind of that was the school of rock introduction. But then I started falling into like pop punk as a kid, and then I got more into like kind of the folky side of stuff with like I was listening to John Lennon
Mm,
and his greatest hits record. That's one that really affected me. I liked Jack Johnson a lot when I was 11, 13, uh, that kind of stuff. I really loved Nirvana. That was like
mm.
my absolute favorite. And I think Nirvana's MTV Unplugged probably led most people down the rabbit hole that it led me down, where you're then looking up who David Bowie is, and you're
Yeah,
looking
Lead
up
Belly.
who Ed Belly is, right? So that's kind of the train that took you to the station.
Yeah, I think it's been touched on because I think was it the 25-year anniversary of Unplugged the other month.
No
And
way.
and I think it's come up because that was I remember I bought it was the Black Nirvana CD, like the greatest hits, and it had a few of the
I,
Unplugged tracks at the end. And it had it was the first time You're Right had been on a record as well, I think. But I remember that blew my mind when I was a kid. And I think Nirvana was the first discography I ever bought all the way through. But
yeah,
that unplugged session, I think you are 100% right. I think for like our generation, that was kind of the gateway drug to folk and traditional things.
absolutely. That greatest hits compilation is actually one of the worst compilations of all time because I think they took a lot of material that Kurt wouldn't have wanted to see the light of day
Mm,
and stole it. And hold on, somebody, you can cut this part out. Somebody's messing with my phone. Uh, what was I saying? Yeah, I think that compilation was terrible because it had a lot of songs Kurt wouldn't have wanted to see the light of day, and it was just some really awful songs on there. I remember as a young fan though, I loved it and I devoured it from start to finish because I
mm.
was just obsessed with Nirvana. But in retrospect, it was like reading his personal journals and listening to his shitty demos. I mean, they were just awful songs and awful recording quality and awful takes. I bet he's rolling over in his grave every time he plays it.
Mm, probably, but it's just such a. I think, especially if it comes into your like life at such an early age, I think you're gonna be an instant Nirvana fan from that. But with Nirvana, I don't know. Did you ever see the Montage of Heck documentary?
No, I haven't seen that.
That I remember I went to pictures to see it, and it really like shocked me because it had a lot of behind the scenes footage that just was like raw. And when you've got this idea of Kurt Cobain as this rock genius, tortured soul, to see the footage of him actually as like an addict and things. It was really like a heartbreaking picture to see, and it really like rocked my sense of belief in
Sure.
Kurt and stuff.
Well, he was an addict, and
Mm,
he wasn't a good person in that regard. I mean, there's I deal with a lot of addicts now in music, especially, and a lot of the people that are some of my favorite songwriters also have their own struggles with that, and you could tell that the the fandom really grew more than he probably expected it to.
mm,
Uh, yeah, I don't. I imagine he has some pretty rough patches in his life. I
mm.
haven't seen that montage though. That documentary. I'll have to watch that.
Yeah, no, it is a, and like I don't know about you, but like once, like I don't know how old are you?
I'm 28.
28. I'm 29 now, and I remember when I was 10 and 27, I had a bit of like an existential crisis because as a kid, you always think of like Kurt Cobain, like Jimi Hendrix, Amy Winehouse as these like fully formed adults who had like this shit together, and it was like a tragic story. But then as I got to 27 and then got older, I was like, they were just kids, man. They were just still trying to figure it out themselves when
Sure.
everything, yeah.
Well, don't meet your heroes because they'll turn out to be douchebags. Is the real lesson to learn. But no, I mean, you got to have empathy with them, and
Mm,
it's crazy to think how much pressure is put on somebody when their music reaches such a level, and all the
mm,
how people are just so predisposed to have opinions of you based on the songs that you write and how much those songs connect with people in unexpected ways.
mm,
I'm sure that, for example, Josh Okeefe, I'm sure gets messages every day from people who both really, really love his music and are touched by it, and also people that want to call him a communist bastard because they just, have some idea about him based on the things he writes, which fair enough, that's how the world works, but you really got to have empathy with people for what they're going through themselves.
yeah, it's such a hard thing, especially like as a music fan or like as a fan of any medium to then try and separate the art from the artist and trying to see them as a fully formed person. And even with the whole song catalog, that's just kind of scratching the surface of it.
Yeah, people are complicated and their music is too, and it's impossible really to separate, the art from the artist in some ways, and you just got to appreciate what it brings to the table for you.
Mm. So coming on to even like Gems on VHS, but before then, what was the kind of spark or the inspiration to even look at doing something like Gems on VHS or just starting to film artists that you liked?
Oh, well, we originally were influenced by somebody named Vincent Moon, who did a French documentary series called La Blogothèque, which
Hmm.
is still online, that has a lot of really big artists on it now, or maybe not as big at the time, but they filmed a lot of them in Paris, and it was just this beautiful, uh, just reality kind of way of filming musicians off stage. They would just document these moments, just kind of point the camera and turn it on. Um, Cinema verite would be the term to look up for that. Just
Hmm.
the real, realistic, not like reality show realistic, but reality, as it were.
Hmm.
Just the truth of the moment. And they just kind of would film these artists playing in the streets and playing impromptu. And I thought that it was really beautiful, and happened to be in Nashville, where there's a lot of music and a lot of songwriters and a lot of art. So we were just at the crossroads of that, and it was the right moment and the right time and the right place. And I've always loved documentary and I've always loved music. So we kind of put the two together, and, just wanted to get the word out there that there were people writing songs that uh, were more than just fluff.
Hmm. Cool, man. Because it's a very like I know it's with acoustic guitars, it's more folk and roots and traditional, but there's such a punk ethic to it and a punk philosophy behind it. I think from even the terms of like the filming and the artist, you can see the punk heritage in the people performing as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of the actual artists that I work with grew up on punk music. I think a lot of us did, and a lot of us kind of have our roots in harder styles of music. And I think that's an interesting evolution that you see. I think that people like Woody Guthrie and all those types are the original punk rockers. I mean, that
Mm.
was nothing more punk than, organizing thousands of laborers and singing songs to incite them to riot against their employers. I think stuff like that is pretty punk. And, as punk ages, it doesn't age gracefully. And old punks are kind of uh, not exactly the coolest genre to get into. Punk is a young man's game, so I think that there's a lot more longevity in acoustic instruments. It's kind of a timeless
Mm.
format, and so I think that it lent itself naturally to a lot of people that grew up in the punk scene, kind of uh, adapting.
Mm. It's really interesting because like punk, like it's still like 3 minute songs trying to convey like an emotional story across to it. So it's just interesting how like the younger generation of folk artists embraced that and moved it across. But so you started filming in 2011. When did you really see like ripples and things coming through from, making, a bit of like leeway or headway in with Gems?
Well, I think from the beginning there was a lot of positive reinforcement from the immediate community. I think a lot
Mm,
of people liked what we were doing, and I think a lot of the artists had really great songs, and that's kind of the reward for me, is making
mm,
the art like that. But as far as the first moment we saw some sort of ripple of, I don't know what you want to call it, success or wide appeal, was I think with the song Using Again that Benjamin
mm,
Todd, it's about his addiction issues, was a pretty big song on the channel, probably the most views now. But that one really took off. I think it spoke to a lot of people, and it kind of represents really well what we try to capture on the channel, which is just really raw, really realistic
mm,
moments, and songs that have something to say to people, songs that people can hear and go, okay, that makes me think, that makes me really reflect, I can relate to this, that was exactly what I was thinking, you really put it into words. And being able to watch it just adds another layer to it. And
mm,
that was the first time that we saw something larger than life kind of happen. That was nice.
mm. With it being like, was it all filmed locally to start with? Do you have like a center of like a local base that you started from, and that was how you gained traction in like the first instances with artists?
Yeah, it was a lot of local kind of involvement. I mean, Nashville, Tennessee, in the United States is
Mm,
a crossroads of a lot of different people and places, because there's, three, I think three major interstates that all come through the
mm,
city from different places. It's very centrally located, and it's also Music City, USA, quote unquote. It's where there's a lot of music going down. A lot of songwriters come from across the country to come here for different events and different reasons and different business and different shows. So it kind of lent itself well to positioning us to meet a lot of different people and have a lot of different opportunities. Whereas if I was in, some town in Mississippi or in the middle of nowhere, Wyoming, it'd be a lot harder to reach people without traveling.
mm, mm.
And the
Um,
local community here is definitely very, very vibrant.
yeah. And I know obviously as like an outsider here in the UK, Nashville, it has like this music row, like pristine image of country music and stuff, and yours is kind of the antithesis to it, where it's kind of the underground, the current. And have you found yourself embraced by the Nashville culture, or is it just you started your own scene and forged ahead, and that's where that's come from?
Well, yeah, I don't know if I've started a scene in Nashville. I really don't focus very locally, as far as like cultivating
Mm,
a community goes, although I probably should. We don't, I used to throw shows and stuff, but I've kind of backed away from that. And I guess in the future, I've kind of taken it on more of a global scale. We
mm,
went to Scotland recently and filmed and recorded some traditional Scottish music and artists and really interesting music there. And I was doing a lot more stuff like that right before quarantine hit,
Mm,
not so much focusing on the local aspect. Um, yeah, I don't know, and I don't I don't do too much in Nashville, but there is definitely that Music Row life going on. There's the commercial country stuff, and that's some people's, that's some people's tea.
mm,
For me, that's not really what strikes a chord, but I also am not one of those people who is going to militaristically pretend like what I listen to is somehow inherently better
mm,
than people who just want to listen to music about going down a dirt road and slapping butt cheeks or whatever they're into. I'm cool with all that too.
mm.
Sometimes you just want to party. I mean, whatever.
Yeah. And you were in the UK and you were recording some Scottish people. Who were you recording over here?
I was recording Sorley the Bard, Sam Shackleton. He's this
Mm,
guy at Edinburgh who's incredible, really awesome guy. Busker, plays a lot on the streets and just studies Scottish traditions
mm,
in school. And then Iona Fife in Glasgow, who is
mm,
an incredible um, vocalist. She sings like an angel and does a lot of ballads. And both of them are really into Alan Lomax
mm,
and all the music that he recorded when he came over to Scotland for a good number of years, traveling around the north to, find all those old ballads and all those old songs. They're into that history and that music, and so am I. So it really lent itself naturally to collaborating. And I got a couple songs up there while I was there, and I was really hoping to come back and expand upon that in the future.
cool, man. I think it was this week I found Iona Fife, my friend Richard Glover from Kings and Queens. We were talking about music that we'd been listening to, and he threw her name up, and I started listening this week, and I was blown away by the ballad she's got on Spotify that I was listening to.
Yeah, I really like. I really wait. Who'd you say you heard that from?
Richard Glover from Kings and
Oh,
Queens.
I love Richard. Yeah, he's great. Yeah, yeah, he's a good dude, and
Yeah,
he knows about all that too.
yeah, his folk knowledge as well is really great.
Yeah, I'm hoping to come up there and meet him sometime. I know we were talking just a couple weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, and yeah, hopefully they'll let me in there again because I'd love to come meet you guys down
Mm,
there and
yeah.
experience what you got going on.
Cool, man. Well, I'm made up. He was in Australia for a long time, and he's literally just moved about an hour away from me, up in
Oh no,
Oldham. So we're hoping to meet up once quarantine ends and stuff because we haven't actually met face to face yet. But now he only lives an hour away. It's going to be easier.
everything in the UK is just an hour away. You guys, I swear to God, I'll talk to people there and I'll be like, hey, person in London, have you ever been to Scotland? And they're like, oh no, I've never been there. And I'm like, it's 3 hours away. In America, you drive 3 hours just to get to the grocery store. So
Mm,
it's like,
yeah.
it's not a hard trip.
Yeah, I think for British people, we really take for granted what Europeans and Americans kind of like knowing. Because I know if I do a gig even half an hour away, people will and ah about it. Or if there's something 45 minutes away, they're gonna be making excuses or trying to think of ways to get out of it. But I know there's a Finnish band who like travels 7 hours there and 7 hours back to do band practice. And I've heard stories from people in the States driving across the whole country for shows and things, and British people are spoiled in the fact you can get across the
Yeah.
country in 6 hours.
Yeah, and I mean the trains are amazing. When
Mm,
I went there, I was blown away by the transportation, and it was really great to think that I could get from, Sheffield to Edinburgh in no time, really, just
mm.
on a train, and that's great to take advantage of, especially if you're interested in learning about all the different music across the continent, the island.
Mm.
I really love the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, definitely. And with like the UK musicians and musicians in general, do you travel around and kind of happen upon them, or do you do research as you go, and or do you hear about an artist and then go to that place to try and like meet them or film them or?
Oh, it's kind of makeshift. You just put your ear to the wind and try and hear what happens because you never know who's going to respond to an email. I just kind of frantically search for the best of the best and people that, recommend other people. And it's hard to, even in our super connected world, it seems like it's hard to find people of like mind across the
Mm,
globe. I can't imagine if they spoke another language, and I hope to cross that barrier sometime as well, and get out to places where English isn't the first language and find the talent
mm,
and find the great songwriters of those places. But that's not an easy task. It's kind of easier when you can really relate and understand the subject matter, language, and culture of
mm.
the people. Judge it for yourself, whether it's good or bad. It gets a little harder to judge the quality of something when you don't have much relation to it.
No, definitely. I know I toured with a Finnish band called Samoa, and they sing in English, but one of their side projects they were singing completely in Finnish, and they were listening. Like they showed me some things to listen to, and it moved me, but it's you kind of still have that barrier of you wish to understand it more, which I think can hold you back. So you have to kind of embrace it as like another just instrument, really.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. I really love. I listen to a lot of foreign language music on Spotify. Whenever I'm spinning some stuff, and yeah, hell, I don't understand one bit of it, but it
Mm,
definitely move you just by the tones and notes of the music, and yeah, you do just kind of register the vocals as another instrument at that point and not really take in the context. But yeah, I think there's a lot to gain from listening to music from other places too. There's actually this Sahel Sounds. It's a Saharan African label that
mm,
puts out a lot of these sub-Saharan African bands, and they just make this incredible you know soundtrack-esque desert music, it feels like, and they're really incredible. I recommend people check them out. Sahel Sounds, Sahel Sounds. They're on Instagram and stuff, and I've really enjoyed listening to them, and I have no idea what they're saying,
mm.
but sounds awesome. So
Cool, man. I'll check them out. I've been listening to a band lately called Lung. I can't remember where they're from, but I think they're Scandinavian, and they sing in poems from inscriptions of shields and things from Viking times, and that's all they exclusively deal in, and it's all handmade instruments made from animal skin and bone, and it's really ritualistic. But they've started playing like metal festivals and things because it's got that kind of energy to it, but it's got this
oh yeah, I think I might
primal
have.
like
What are they called again?
Heilung.
High Lung. Yeah, I think I've seen them. It's funny. This might be a trigger warning for anybody not interested in this kind of stuff, but for some reason, a lot of that type of music gets really co-opted by white supremacists because they seem to really love uh, anything to do with like pre-Christian Viking era
Oh,
stuff,
really?
music, and
Mm,
yeah, death metal has the same
mm,
unfortunate connection. Um, and yeah, which just unfortunate that they get that because I'm sure a lot of the people that make the music have absolutely no
yeah.
connection to that or interest. But I've when I have heard those things, it's always been in connection to somebody who just has sympathies with you know interest in white heritage and culture, which I have interest in those things, but it's always suspect when it
Mm.
gets brought up. It's like, oh, why are you? It's always in some argument online that I see links to that stuff, and I'm
Oh,
like,
really?
yeah, I've seen that band before, I believe.
Mm. Oh, crazy one because I
Not
saw
that
that.
or that you do.
I saw they're doing is it the Red Rocks Amphitheater in Colorado, the outdoor one on the steps? Is it
Yeah.
with? Yeah, they're playing there. I think that'd be really cool. But it's a shame when bands kind of get co-opted for a
Mm,
different.
yeah, absolutely. I know Bob Dylan feels the same way about his music being called, the voice of a generation.
Mm,
Kurt Cobain felt that way. Music gets co-opted and kind of out of your hands once you put it out there. It becomes its own beast. So unfortunately, you got to deal with the fans that you inevitably get, and kind of grapple with that at the same time of making your music from your own creative,
mm,
without. I don't know. You always try to create without being influenced by the people
mm.
hear the things that you write, but the two kind of go hand in hand, I guess.
Yeah, I know because I was touring in Belgium once and I got put on a poster as alt country, which is a pretty, common term and it's widely accepted as just like alternative country. But people came to the gig because they'd equated alt country with alt right. And that was a fucking harrowing ordeal to try and express that I was in no way associated or had any of those beliefs and things. It was really weird conversation with someone in like kind of Belgian broken English trying to explain that that wasn't in any way what I was
Yeah.
about or the performance or the music was gonna be, just to try and put that out there before I even began the show.
Yeah, there's definitely a cross section of people who, are interested in certain genres and certain things. But yeah, you gotta, like I said, you gotta try your best to write without thinking about those
Mm.
people. It's it's tough to separate though. You got your fans, and you got to kind of ask yourself why you have these fans.
Mm.
And yeah, I don't know what the answer is to what to do about it, but it's interesting when music gets co-opted like that.
Yeah, definitely. It's such a weird discussion, especially at this moment in time with everything that's gone on. It's a weird conversation to kind of having to sit down with yourself and think about. It's one of those that music and art definitely play a part in that you need to assess.
Indeed, and a lot of artists right now are having to think about what their duty is with their art, and what is their responsibility, and what they should do with their platform and what they shouldn't do.
Mm.
And I've seen some really difficult conversations go down, and some people say when an artist makes a statement, they're just capitulating to a crowd, or they're pandering. But
Mm.
when you have to make those decisions, I don't think people make them lightly. You're really thinking about what's right and wrong, and
Mm.
I think artists can use their platform for whatever they want at the end of the day, and I don't think they should be necessarily criticized for. Some people are like, oh, just go back to making music, we didn't want
Mm.
to hear the from you. And I'm just thinking, well, it's their right.
Yeah.
it's their it's their right to say whatever they want. Josh O'Keefe plays Bernie Sanders rallies, and that has made him plenty of enemies.
Oh,
But
really?
yeah, yeah, what do they call you, Joe? Well, we can't say that on air. It's kind of, they call him names and stuff. But then he doesn't care. He writes his songs from a place where, he believes what he
Mm.
says. He doesn't care one way or the other what people imagine it's about or think that he's about. He knows what he's about. And I think that's the way that artists have to write and react. And just make sure you're true to yourself and what you think, and say something that means something to you.
Mm.
Hey, I got a question. Do you mind if Josh plays a song right now then, now that I brought him up? What
Yeah,
do you
if you
think,
want
Josh?
to tag team this as well, I can chat to Josh as well a bit and talk to you both and make this a bit of a triple thing if you want.
Yeah, well, I don't think he's going to be able to hear you the way I got the headphones set up, unfortunately, but I could have him just sit down and play one for you if you
Yeah,
want.
perfect.
Okay, I'm gonna clear out of here and let the amazing, talented, and well dressed today, although you can't hear it in podcast land, Josh Okeefe here today. He brought me his Kickstarter just went off with a hit. He finished it. He's getting the stuff out there, and he just brought me the T-shirt and CD that I ordered. How about that?
Cool, man.
Best story in today's wild world. We have some good news. Yeah. What are you gonna play, Josh? What do you think? Can you play us the one you played for Bernie? If you do have any questions for Josh, I'm happy to ask him, and then he can talk into the
Yeah,
microphone.
well, with the Bernie Sanders thing, how did he start playing at those rallies?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I'll let him sit down, and then I'll ask him that. What are you looking for, Josh? Capo? I think I might have one. Here, take a seat. Oh. Josh, one thing that he asked was how you got about to play in those rallies, and how that was all went down. Maybe you could explain a little bit about that before you play the song.
Yeah, it was pretty simple, really. I wrote a song called We're All the Same, and then next thing you know, I was getting a call from the Bernie Sanders team, I guess you call it, saying they want me to be a part of his town hall virtual rally. So I thought, well, Bernie Sanders has been fighting for good causes since he was born, probably. So I thought, why not? Well, here's a tune anyway. I can figure out this harmonica. I don't think I've blown a harmonica since the old coronavirus. I had to Clorox it just before this. We're all the same, with different names, looking for love through joy and pain, all flesh and bone, all headed home. We don't even know we're not alone. We're links in the chain. We're all the same. We're all the same. We're black and we're white, wrong and we're right, strong and we're weak, proud and we're meek, lose and we win, saints and we sin, give and we take, we bend and we break. We'll know someday we're all the same. We're all the same. We're all in this together, through a mother's eyes. What difference do you hear when a baby cries? We're all the same, no one to blame. We're all going back from where we all came. Waves on a sea, dissolve in the deep. Woman and man, like grains of sand, through winds of change. We're all the same. We're all the same.
That was Josh Okeefe, my buddy. He's here. He's back in town. Just,
Amazing. That's definitely, if when I picture a Bernie Sanders rally or a Bernie Sanders type message, that's definitely something I'd think along the lines of the same. Jeremy Corbyn would probably play that as well.
yeah, no doubt, fit right in, wouldn't it? Well, it was a great song, and it's a great it's a great album. Anybody who hasn't checked it out has to check it out. He's got some great songs on it. He actually took me to the UK for the first time. Forever grateful. And I accidentally fell in love and had a girlfriend out there because of that. So don't know whether to thank him or to never go with him again for fear of meeting some beautiful women out there. But it was a good time, and I think that we've got many more tours in store. So thanks so much for playing that for everybody, Josh. You're welcome. He says you're welcome.
Oh, brilliant. I'll have to speak to Josh as well, because, from that song and Bernie Sanders, and he's an English lad who's come over to Nashville. I think that's a really interesting conversation that I'll have to have down the line with him.
Oh, yeah, he would love to be on, I'm sure. Would you be on a podcast there, Josh? Yeah. He says he doesn't know what they are, but he'd happily be on.
Cool, man. So with, like Gems and what you do now, do you have like a content calendar or a deadline or anything that you want to try and stick to, or is it just as you record and edit them, you put them out?
We try desperately to keep up with a schedule. I think scheduling is really important to getting consistent work done. And we work hard to put out a schedule, and I think over the past year we've gotten pretty good at it. I've got a lot of videos. This quarantine actually suited me well because I had too many videos to edit, and no plans on stopping shooting, which is the actual fun part, going around meeting new people and experiencing life, but well, luckily we had to quarantine, and so I've gotten around to editing quite a few videos instead of sitting them on a computer for all of time. So I can say without a doubt that I'm sick of being at home and editing on the computer, but at the same time, it feels good to get some stuff done.
Cool. And who have you got recorded that you're currently in the middle of editing?
Oh, who don't I have? There's all kinds of people. Shoot, I mean, there's Benjamin Todd songs. There's got some of Sorley, the Sam Shackleton out in Edinburgh that I got to finish up. I got one of a guy from England, Reg Maross, who I met playing with Josh, who I say opened for me when like that. What do you? Who played with Josh at a show, and I gotta edit one of his, and I got a bunch, man. I got tons. I mean, just all the artists you've already seen on there, plus then some. Plus, me and Josh got to get around to filming some new ones. He's shaking his head. Yes, he knows it's true. So we're gonna talk about that too, and get some stuff done, some new stuff, hopefully. Socially distanced filming. We'll get around to it. And yeah, man, I got too many artists that I need to finish editing. Is the truth of it.
Cool, man. And with those type of artists, like obviously you got Benjamin Todd and Sierra Fell and stuff. Is there anyone on your kind of wish list that you've not recorded, or is there anyone that you've wanted to, you haven't had the chance yet?
I think the people that I want to film that I haven't filmed yet would be the people that nobody knows about yet. I want to meet more of the greatest known unknowns. I want to meet, just more great young songwriters who have something to say that nobody has heard of yet. I don't really have dreams of filming big stars that people can imagine. I kind of started doing that. I kind of started meeting my heroes and filming them, and it's great and all, but everybody already knows those folks are great. I'm looking forward to just meeting more upcoming musicians, people who have given up everything and are really dedicated to their craft. People who are, I used to say on the road 24/7, but obviously things have changed a little bit, so we'll see how the discovery process goes. But I like people that are just dedicated to their craft and have something to say, and say it in a way that's very intelligent.
Cool, man. I know that's kind of why I started this podcast as well, because especially in England, like with the American scene, you've kind of got these upcoming names of, these known unknowns, as you've said, that are coming through, and the UK has such like a wealth of talent that's bubbling under the surface. And I think what you guys have done is set a great precedent for that, because it's showing these young artists to like the same generation fans and building this base. And I think there's a lot to come out of the UK at the moment. I think that we're really, not copying you guys for, but we're definitely taking over what you guys are doing, wanting to try and forge that ahead ourselves.
I think that's great, and I hope you can get out there and record some, because it's hard to find great outlets for songwriting when you're not from a place. So we'll have to stay in touch. Maybe you could put me in touch with some great songwriters, and you all have a endless supply of history with which to work with, which is really great, and a great legacy of innovating American music, and also a great a legacy of your own traditional music that is underutilized, I would say, at the very least. There aren't a lot of people, in my experience, in the UK that are not pensioners who are interested in maypole songs and ballads and all that cheesy, corny shit that young people don't seem to really appreciate or enjoy, which is fair. But I think if you were to contemporize it a little bit and bring it up to speed with today's issues and today's just world, I think that young people could appreciate much more of the heritage of the Isles and the music there. I think in Ireland you have the exact opposite. Everybody there is extremely in touch with their society and the music that their culture has been presenting. It was funny going there because it's so different from the UK and so close. I think the young people there, it doesn't matter how young you are, you still have a sort of this appreciation for the traditional music.
Mm,
So many of the pubs and jams I would walk into would just be packed full of young people, playing the fife and all kinds of different things and just really into it.
mm,
Whereas any pub I went to in the UK that was having a traditional night was filled with, you know, corny people with gray hair
mm.
who, I love them to death. Just it's shame not to see young people enjoying it in the same way, and I think it has a lot to do with obviously the legacy of imperialism
Mm.
and people just aren't proud of the history, and we have a lot of that here in America too. But we've kind of reclaimed folk music here to kind of represent contemporary issues, which I think is interesting.
Yeah, I think that's a really fair point. I think, especially with Ireland and Scotland, they have such a cultural identity that they've clung on to, and that has
Yeah.
been in the face of, not what Britain did, but what the English did to those countries. So
Mhm.
that kind of forced Scotland and Ireland to kind of dig its heels in and make a stand and say, this is what we are. And
Right.
England,
Otherwise, assimilated and you're erased.
yeah, and England kind of spread out so far that it kind of forgot its roots. And one of the cool things, speaking of like Richard Glover again, was he's been doing like a folk song either a day or a week. And then like English or British folk songs that I'd never listened to. And it's a whole new discovery of it. And I think if England could get in touch with those roots again, it'd be really something special. I don't know if you've heard of an artist called Serious Sam Barrett.
Serious Sam Barrett. No, I don't think I've heard of him. Have you heard of him, Josh? No, he does. He hasn't either. Who's that?
He's a Leeds-based singer and he's a folk singer, but he's this young guy. He skateboards. If you looked at him on the
Ooh,
street, you wouldn't think he's playing the type of
right.
music he's playing. I'll send you across some of the stuff, but he's doing some really great things in terms of his own like spin on folk songs about like the Yorkshire moors and that land
Oh,
and those traditions and that history, as well as bringing in those old folk songs that he grew up on.
yeah, I think that's great. I think that it's great when you can't tell that somebody enjoys folk music when you look at them
Mm,
sometimes. I mean, there's a place for being able to tell in the fashion, but it's nice when somebody's just like totally out of character for what they do. And
mm,
there's one guy in America that I think of like that named Casper Allen,
mm.
who country music, but he's like got face tattoos and he's like, really into rap music, and you catch him wearing, hip hop gear, but then he breaks out the guitar and he sings like a traditional song like "Oh Death" or
Mm.
something by that Doc Boggs made famous in his rendition, and I think that that really helps to kind of shake up the stereotypes and make things cool.
Yeah. I think because I remember I saw the first exposure I had to Casper Allen was the Carving Creases video you guys did.
Yeah, that was a
And
great one.
I remember that video stopped me in my tracks. But I think one of the appeals of Gems and what you guys do is something that more people need to tap into is these musicians do just look modern, contemporary. They've got the hip hop influences and metal influences, but then they stop because obviously Benjamin Tully's got like the throat tattoos and he's got all that going on, but then he stops and sings these gorgeous songs on his acoustic. And I think that juxtaposition really helps jar people and make people pay attention.
Yeah, no, it's a really interesting way to do it, and I'm glad that they don't kind of they do their own thing. That's
Mm,
the biggest part about making contemporary music, I guess, is just being able to do it in your own way without
mm,
pandering. But there's also a place for trad music and traditional sounds, and really just emulating and doing your own interpretations of more traditional stuff. I think there's a place for that too.
mm. Cool, man. It's so weird because like I've like me and a few musicians in the UK have started a thing called Road Country, and we're trying to use like what you guys have set the kind of road for as well as that Western AF. And what we're trying to do is try and demonstrate what the UK has to offer and bring in more, American like influences and artists that we've found out at the time and kind of put that all together. And I think there's a really interesting and fun movement at the moment where we get to discover loads of new artists, obviously from people like yourself.
Yeah, I love Western. They're great too. A good channel, and there is this kind of a cultivating scene for this kind of stuff, and I hope it continues for a while. You know,
Yeah.
times change and
Yeah.
popularity rises and wanes for different
Mm,
types of. But if we can make it something, we can make it something timeless, then I think it'll find its niche and appreciation
mm,
across years and across many different kinds of people, as long as we make the tent big
yeah.
enough to accommodate them.
Mm. Yeah, man. And I think like what you've kind of done and what Western does is take that like Alan Lomax philosophy and just brought it forward. But if someone wanted to start like a YouTube channel, start documenting this type of music or any type of music that they were passionate about, what would you recommend or what would your first like bits of advice be for people to start there?
If they want to learn how to play this type of music,
Or to even document it and start a YouTube channel or start a way to bring out the music they are fans of.
yeah, I mean, if you want to do something, I guess you've just answered your own question. If you want to do it, just do it,
Mm,
because there's no two ways around it. And any excuse about gear or like having the available equipment or anything like that is kind of pointless.
mm,
I film all of these on my iPhone, and I did do a lot of the audio recording on phones in the beginning. None of that stuff matters at the end of the day. It's all about the content. It's all
mm.
about the context. It's all about your vision and your drive. So if you want to start a YouTube channel about anything, just go for it, I say, and don't let anybody tell you any different. And the only way you're going to succeed is through unwavering belief in your
Mm,
own mission, because Gems on VHS was 7 years on before we got any kind of success, so to speak,
mm,
besides personal success that I enjoyed from achieving what I was setting out to do, and that was just film music. So if I would have gave up back then you wouldn't be talking to me right now. And you're a lovely person, so it's been great. And I think that anybody wanting to start something should, again, just do it.
Oh, well, thanks so much, man. Like, I'll let you go in a minute, but so the first few videos were recorded on iPhones, and
No, not
oh,
necessarily recorded on iPhones. I think they were recorded on some like Canon
mm,
T2i,
oh yeah,
uh, DSLR. But I did record the audio. I would put cell phones in people's shirt pockets and press the like the voice memos,
mm,
and that turned out really good a lot of times. And I mean, there are $800 devices in your pocket. You might as well utilize them for more than
yeah,
just phone calls and scanning Instagram. uh, it's a powerful piece of
yeah,
technology. Technology is really ubiquitous nowadays. It's easy to get high quality gear for cheap, and you imagine what these guys filmed with in the past, like 200-pound, 1 ton, recording rigs in the back of Model T Fords. If they could
mm,
do that, we have all these better tools the size of, a box of gum. Then I think there's no excuse to why you can't start something incredible.
yeah. No, that's such a really good point, man, and that's so like apt and true to it. And we've been chatting for like 50 minutes. I know we've got a bit of a time difference, so I'll let you get on with the rest of the day if you want. And I'm really glad like you stopped by to speak to us. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of your work.
Thank you so much, man. Thanks for having me again, and thanks for listening to Josh play his song. And I'm sure that if you want to get a hold of him, he'd be happy to play a few more for you on a podcast in the future. And I hope to meet you sometime out there in the big wide world, if it ever becomes a world that one can travel in again.
Yeah, definitely, man. That'd be awesome. Either I'm heading over in the States, or if you ever come to the UK, I'll only be an hour away.
Absolutely. And a lot of people tell me Liverpool is great, and they tell me that it has a great Irish connection. My
Yeah,
buddy
man.
Pat Reedy spends a lot of time there. So
Yeah,
if you ever see a show with him, make sure you catch it, because he's an amazing country artist too.
yeah. Pat Reedy's brilliant. I actually played with him in a pub in Liverpool a couple of
That's
years back, and he's a
very.
great guy as well.
How about that? Small world.
Yeah, but cool, man. I'll hit stop on this.
All right. Have a good day.
You too. Thanks. And there we go, guys. Episode 9 of Into the Van, Into the Bag. I'm so happy with this episode. That song by Josh was fucking brilliant. And, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. This was a big bucket list guest for me to get to sit down with Anthony and pick his brain about Gems on VHS. Again, if you haven't checked out that YouTube channel and their page and everything, drop everything and go do it now, because that is the type of thing that is going to keep country and folk and blues music going past these legacy acts and past this mainstream push for artists that are against the inherent core values of this music. While I think Gems on VHS shows these new artists approaching these genres with such a profound respect and perception and just a view that I think is completely invaluable at this time. So I hope you enjoyed it, guys. I'll see you on the next one. Until then, stay safe. Peace.